Welcome to the 5th episode of CelebWorx live series Yo Joe RAPS, where we carry only the best Dr. Mindbender microbrews. Yo Joe RAPS is an inside look into the iconic series of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. I'm Christopher Arsaga.
I'm Nery Lemus. Thanks for joining us on our new inside look where knowing will no longer be half the battle.
To the general public, if you have any G.I. Joe questions or really any questions in general, or our special guest or us, if you want to ask us a question, that's quite all right, because Nery's normally pretty bored over there. So, but please post them on the official stream, and we'll answer them if we can.
I'm excited to bring on this voiceover legend. Having begun the pursuit of his chosen career at a local radio station, KSDN, in Aberdeen, South Dakota, during his senior year in high school, Brian set his sights high and has continued to talk a lot. Brian Cummings has performed on multiple popular animated series. Among his most famous roles include, of course, the reason we're all here, Dr. Mindbender on G.I. Joe, Doofus Drake on DuckTales, Papa Bear on the Bernstein Bears, Bumba in the Wuzzles, Dimmy and the Snorks, Chef Boucher in Beauty and the Beast, Morden Fizback and Professor Funt in Denver the Last Dinosaur, Clyde Cat on Tom and Jerry and Kids, and Sir Tuxford in Disney's Gummy Bears. Video game audiences worldwide know him best for Sokolov in Metal Gear Solid, the franchise, and now the sculptor from Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Yeah. Brian was the closing announcer for Alf in syndication, and he, along with Mark Elliott, has been one of the longtime voices of Buena Vista Home Entertainment, now Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment's trailers and promotions. He's a close friend of ours. Please welcome our beloved client, Brian Cummings, to today's program. They did?
They did. They said,
Yay!
I just joined. They said, well, now you got to answer all these questions. When I'm done, I'll be glad. But no, okay. they may, who knows? They may do something to us now all over again. We'll see. So
I'm Brian.
We're glad to have you on, Brian.
Okay.
How are you? How are you handling the quarantine?
You know, I'm right now in the foothills of the Rockies in my studio in the basement, and there's people are being cautious, but it's kind of in the country, so they're being, but not as cautious. Let's put it that way. So yeah, we're doing great. We're doing fine.
That's good.
Yeah, it's not exciting, but we're doing fine. Yeah.
So have you been like watching a lot of TV or like?
I've been engaged in many honeydews, but I've also done. I was joking about the epidemic that people don't realize there's a creative epidemic of Robert Bob Marley disease going around, and so I started in 2017 with the single about going to a con. I produced an album last year, finished mixing the album, and now I've revised, remixed, re-recorded about half of it, and created several versions. So I've been in studio a lot. But between honeydews and studio, and we have a new puppy who's half little tiny Charles Spaniel, and the other half is Great White Shark. So,
oh, that's so cute.
It's either lovable or chewing something up or tossing it around.
I love the puppies. That's so awesome.
He's a cutie. He's totally cute and everything's cuter than me. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, many of our fans are aspiring voice actors too. So yeah. We're going to start from the very beginning. How did you get into the business? What was your first role in this business?
Oh boy. The first professional role was, let me see. Well, the deal is I started in a very small town. And so my first role was probably to the mirror. No, the first role was down the street from my house where I did a really bad Elvis impression, and the Cummings family, Cheeks were my nickname. They called me Cheeks and said, Cheeks, do your Elvis. And I would do my Elvis. Then in high school, I got into plays. But in high school, the local radio station that you mentioned earlier at the intro was looking for a part-time kid. They wanted a college kid. My dad goaded me to show up, even though I was still in high school. And I think somebody said, yeah, kid's not very good, but hey, we won't have to hire a part-time kid for 6 years instead of 4. Hey, hire him. Only he did it with a South Dakota accent. But there you go. And so what started was like doing local commercials and doing this. To think about the first thing that I did, early things I did, an episode of a cartoon show called Jana of the Jungle.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't B.J. Ward, right?
B.J. Ward and Michael Bell. Yeah.
Yeah. both of them lovely, wonderful people. What got me about that, one of the early things about that was really special, was after we left Hanna-Barbera, Michael was in the parking lot, called me over and said, "Hey kid, now when you're across the lake, think about the visual. Think about." So I was just doing a voice, and so I said, "Understand, if you're across the lake, you're going to project more. So pay attention to." Oh, yeah, yeah. But the deal was, he was sharing stuff with me that would help me to do a better job. That he would, in
Oh,
some
wow.
part of show business, you don't expect that. In voiceover, people do that all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably, if not one of my first couple of gigs doing stuff. I built a small studio on Ventura Boulevard, and with a partnership with a guy. And there was a man who rented an office around the bend from us, who wanted to produce a cartoon special. And it was, it was a show about oh boy, I'm vaping on the show. Anyway, True Blue played the lead character. And I went in, and since I was in the building, and he found out I was a voiceover guy, said, "Hey, would you do me some favors? You want to come over here and do some voices? If I sell a project, I'll cast you." And so I did some voices for the guy. Stanley the Ugly Duckling was the name of the show.
Ah, yes.
Okay, so I did some voices for him, and he pitched the show, sold the show. And then, because I did the voices for him as a favor, the guy figured, well, he works for free. It can't be that great. So we started casting the show. And then somebody mentioned that they'd seen me in the parking lot. He said, "Oh, I forgot. Maybe I'll throw this guy a bone." So he said, "Just tell him to come on in whenever he can, and maybe I'll throw him a voice or two." So I happened to be really busy at the time. There's that whole thing about supply and demand. So I was really busy at the time, and I told him I would show up, and I didn't show up for about a week and a half. And when he called, he said, "I thought you wanted the job." And I said, "Well, I got busy. I couldn't get any time. I was busy doing other stuff." And he thought, "Oh, this guy works. Maybe he's better than I thought." So he had me, and I got a better part. It was kind of fun. So
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So again, those are a couple of the early ones.
Growing up, did you have like a voiceover person that you like looked up to? And if you did you ever get to work with them later on?
Oh, that's a whole thing there. That's a whole story. I worked in radio. I went around from station to station. I ended up oddly enough, at a rock and roll station in Nashville, which people, what? Yeah. And I worked for a guy named Scott Shannon, who's been around for a couple of years. And Nashville was a really neat market. And I started getting into commercials on the side in Nashville. And at a certain point, there was an ad in one of the magazines, the television magazines, about Dawes Butler, who was the original voice of Crusader, of the primary character in Crusader Rabbit, a show called Rough and Ready, which was Hanna-Barbera's first I think maybe Crusader was first, one of their first shows for television. And they hired Dawes to do all the voices. And then Dawes, I got a friend who's a disc jockey who's also a good voice guy, and he actually suggested Don Messick. And these two guys started out doing everything that the whole studio wanted to do. And then gradually, as they added shows, so Dawes was like a hero of mine. He went on to be Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear, all of the supporting cast. There's a guy, the cat, Snagglepuss, the lion.
Yeah, he was one of the greats.
I mean, he was Huck. He was not only Huckleberry, he was Quick Draw McGraw and his sidekick Babaloo as well in the same show. Both guys. And so when I came to Los Angeles, I left Nashville, and I decided I was going to go after the actual voice business. I'd done a little stuff on the side there. Actually, I did a lot of stuff. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I didn't realize in the business in LA, if you're a production guy, you assemble and mix and do all the stuff with what other talent does. Working in radio was like, if you're a production guy, you just do it all. So I went into a company to get my life paid for while I searched for my star, working for this company. And I didn't realize that was supposed to do it all. I just did. And they went, "Ooh, we can use this guy for a whole lot of stuff and pay him one check." So I happened to bump into Dawes Butler, who came in as a guest on a radio drama show called 0 Hour, which is, I think, the last of the official network radio drama shows, that was hosted by legendary television host from Twilight Zone, Rod Serling.
Oh my God.
And Dawes, and he was a guest, so I kind of summoned up my courage. He was in the studio down the hall, and I was producing, and they said, "Dawes Butler's here," and he's doing, sorry, Dawes. So I went in, I was like, Mr. Butler, and I couldn't say much, but I just, "I loved him, and he said that he had thought of teaching, He said he thought of teaching and he was going to take on a student. And he said, let me hear what you've done. And I gave a tape to him and he listened to the tape and he got back to me. He said, it had some good things in it. And my deal about the good things remark is Dawes said certain things to people that were the things that he said. And that was special because he wanted to make you feel positive. But it was really, I interviewed a guy who was a naturalist at the time, who was also a poet and was again, shortly famous in there. His name was Yule Gibbons. And Yule said that he wrote a poem for a lady that had been a family friend. And he said, the idea of the poem was that, and I'll try to use the nice generic words, is that some people look at a pile of humus or doo-doo, whatever, and that's all they see. And he said, I look at that and I see a rose. And I'm thinking, okay. So when he said that about my tape, I'm thinking, okay, it had nice things in it. It's like there's a bowl and it's filled with that stuff that he talked about with the rose. And there's maybe one little piece of prime rib in the middle of that bowl of otherwise doo-doo. But that's
Right.
what Dawes would do to encourage you. So I ended up going to his house and talking with him. And he said he was going to start a small class. And he would start with a young lady who had agreed to come, who never showed up. And so I started studying with Dawes. And this is like back when it cost a lot. It was like $10 a week to attend Dawes class.
Some of the other iconic students in that class were people like Greg Berg. I mean, you can name some of the other people, but
Corey Burton showed up really early. So did Neil Ross.
Wow.
But over the time, Nancy Cartwright was in our group. Bill Farmer was in. Just tons of great people. The thing that was great, we did a salute to Dawes about a year and a half ago. And one of the things that was kind of cool, I would tell people my Dawes story. And one of the magical things to me was when I first got married, we were so broke that I couldn't afford the $10. And I went to Dawes and I said, I'm going to have to quit the class because I can't afford to pay. And he said, don't worry about it. You're on scholarship. Just and when you can pay for now, you're just on scholarship. It was like, wow. And I told people that this guy was so cool to me. He did. And so we had this big salute to Dawes, and a bunch of people came from all over the country. And we all got together in Santa Monica, and everybody sat down. And after I told that story, then everybody else got up, and pretty much almost everyone said, and when I came out to Los Angeles and I didn't have any money, Dawes said, it's okay. You're on scholarship. He did that.
I think Will Ryan. I think it's a very similar situation with Will Ryan. Yeah.
And I don't want to embarrass anybody, so I wouldn't say that he did the same thing for Nancy Cartwright, but he did. But that kind of thing. It's just he was a remarkable man. He loved the work, but he also loved the people who did the work, and that was kind of special to me. So I still, over the course of my career, I still learned from things that Dawes said to me like 30 years ago, because the man had such truth and he understood how to find the character and how to love the character. He would even in the latter part of his life, the studio would have him in to do something, one of his characters, and there'd be new writers, and he was able to say with credibility, because he deserved it. He bought it. I paid that price. He was able to say, Yogi wouldn't say that. Yogi Bear would say it this way, or he maybe wouldn't do that. And the writers, fortunately, were told by the people who they worked for to respect what Dawes gave them for input, and he would make the characters clear, and he understood them really well.
And that's such an uncommon thing nowadays. I mean, it doesn't happen anymore. So it's really nice to hear stories where the writers
$10, get out of here, kid.
Yeah, I know. And there are some, but good news is that there are also still people around who understand that. I have a Mark Evaner, quick Mark Evaner story. I told somebody just last week, and I was guesting on one of his shows. And I'm pretty sure it was a Garfield show. And typically a lot of people joke about when a director reads the line a certain way for you instead of directing, is like, you should either be better at taking direction or the guy's really a serious control freak. And so I was working. It was a great situation. I've always enjoyed working for him. And at one point he stopped me and said, no, don't do the line that way. Here's how I want it to sound. He read me the line. And I'm going, oh boy, am I in bad shape. I'll never work again. And then I said, okay, but it just seems, and he said, look, I know the visual, I know the gag, I wrote the script. So he said, if you do the line the way I tell you to read the line, it'll work better with the visual and it'll be funnier. And lo and behold, I saw the show. It was. So it's another great thing about this business. When people want to get into the business, I remind them, no matter how successful you become, no matter what you do, no matter whether they give you the award for being the best of the best, this is still a team business. If the writing isn't wonderful and the direction isn't wonderful, and if everything about the thing is not wonderful, then it's not going to fly. You're a team player. You're in a band. And so as long as you can feel good about yourself, and you should, because it takes a lot to get where you get. But you also have to understand it's a team sport, and that whatever happens on the strength of the team. And look at great ensemble shows. G.I. Joe had the biggest cast in the world. I mean, we had a
Yeah.
zillion different characters and stuff, and there was a lot. And Wally was a really great director, but Wally was also one of those guys. He knew how he wanted the line to play, and he
We
knew how he wanted the chemistry to work between us when we were all there.
Yeah.
And the fact that we were such a large group, one of the weird things about it that I didn't think about at the time, because back then we were all get to the next gig, get the job, do more work, and so it was interesting because you'd spend time on the couch visiting with each other because there was so much going on, and they wanted to have people interacting with each other. And sometimes it would get like you get to have a long day, and you're thinking, man, this takes so much longer. Hanna-Barbera, you're in and out in half an hour, maybe less sometimes. But the deal was that as you sat there on the couch, you got to know your cast members, and you developed friendships, and you developed relationships that worked in the studio and without the studio, just because you found interesting people that you worked with, and it made the product better, I think.
I'm glad you brought it up. The reason we're all here, and the reason many of our fans are watching, of course, G.I. Joe, Real American Hero.
Boy,
You were Dr. Mindbender in G.I. Joe.
Yes.
Yes. So how were you cast for the series?
This is one of those things. You do stuff sometimes, you make all the logical choices. Dawes had a theory, and I mentioned this on a chat room once, and somebody who was a producer and an actor pretty much ripped me apart and said, "You don't do that." But basically, Dawes said it's like pool. You want to get the ball in the pocket, but he said you want to add a little English to the way the ball goes. And he said the reason is because 98% of people will read this thing the same way. They'll make the same judgments. They'll see the same visuals. He said, so I want to do something that's close to what they want, but I want to skew it off to one side or the other, so I'm different than everybody else. And then I went in to see Dr. Mindbender, and I don't know why, I thought kind of a bad Arnold Schwarzenegger. That meant Arnold was big at that time, and I was going, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of that, and they loved it. It's just, it was just kind of you do sometimes things that are really well thought out, and people go, yeah, okay, thanks. Nice for you. Come and see you. Let's get Welker. So you go in and you do something off the top of your head, and you think that was fun. I'll never get this gig. Somebody else will get the job. Lo and behold, they loved it. So
well, Greg Berger says, shared a really interesting story with us a couple weeks ago. He said that Wally had a bunch of characters on a table, and he literally went in and picked the characters he wanted. Was that the same for you, or?
Wally was a man. He had been a military man in his background. He had also been an on-camera director, and so he was another one of those guys that had a really strong feeling of what he wanted, the concept, what chemistry he wanted, how he wanted things to go. We would joke about it because Wally was one of those guys who would give you line readings that would like, Wally's doing this thing as if Wally's playing all the parts. But the fact of the matter is that he knew these characters so deeply and he knew the things that we didn't know about the military part of the deal. So I think Wally was very strong in what he did. He knew exactly what he wanted. He wasn't at all, this is terrible. I did a special Pink Panther special with Frank Welker and some other guys. Hal Smith, who was the original Town Drunken Andy of Mayberry, and a terrific voiceover guy, marvelous voiceover guy.
Oh, Hal Smith was great.
Hal, and was a funny man.
Wasn't he Owl, the original Owl?
Yeah. He just was.
From Winnie the
He
Pooh?
was all over the place, and Hal was just brilliant. And he was delayed at another session. We were doing this thing, and Wally happened to be directing this show, this Pink Panther show. And Wally said that what happens is if I've got an actor who's late, I'm going to have to edit like crazy. I'm going to spend like a day editing in the stuff to get Hal. So he said I didn't want to do that. So he said I'm just going to like recast. So when you come to a character, if it was one that Hal was going to do and he's not here, I'll just toss it to you and Frank, and you guys do it, and then we'll have Hal do whatever's left as soon as he gets here. And that's what we did, and it worked. It still worked. It was amazing. So I think it's marvelous. So you do the stuff off the top of your head, understanding that. Another thing about casting that I thought was interesting, Metal Gear was interesting because I read for a Russian character and a British character. So Sokolov was the Russian scientist, and so I went in with I've always wanted to. I like the John Hurt kind of like Remus. He can be smiling, but he's always got that sneering thing. And this is really cool. So I did the British guy with kind of a little bit of that Hurt-esque kind of a thing. Again, I one thing that's great. I don't feel guilty about stealing other people because I'm not as good an impersonator as a lot of guys are. So it's not perfect, and so I'm not really stealing. I'm just kind of playing in the same tennis court as they are at that moment. But
well, most people when they do when we talk to them, they say that they're just like doing a bad impression of somebody.
yeah,
That's exactly what they said. The best
Yeah.
characters are bad impressions of
It's
other
pretty
people.
much everybody does it. So
and there are those people who have actually, in critiquing me, said I've been doing a bad impression of myself for most of my life. That's another story. So, in any event, so I did the kind of Hurt-esque character, and then I did a more kind of strident Russian fellow, but also a bit sneaky. And it was interesting in that you make your judgments. So went away, got cast for the show, came back in, and we did the John Hurt kind of British character with a bit of the British and then just a little bit of Russian laid on top of that for Sokolov. So you do what you can do, and then they get involved and do what they want to do creatively, and it takes sometimes in surprising places you didn't expect to go, which is part of the fun of the whole deal.
So I have a offbeat question here. So the character Shipwreck in G.I. Joe,
Yeah,
he has a parrot.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, you almost played a famous parrot, right?
Well, I did play a maybe not a famous but infamous parrot because he didn't have that. But I did almost play a parrot in a legendary Disney movie with a guy who flies around on a carpet. I think he rented them from Hertz Carpets, and they changed the whole concept of the show. But I also did a parrot in the Gummy Bears series. I played a parrot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Who squawked around. But the original idea, I don't know if you're supposed to tell this, but when I was originally auditioning for the thing, the thing that was great about the parrot is that it's kind of like an interesting thing because they had the parrot be kind of a slimy spy character and speak actual dialogue to Jafar. So he would be in public, he'd just be, like a stupid parrot. And then he'd be alone with Jafar and be, and this is what he said. So it would be like two different sides. And the infinite wisdom of the producers were that some of the concepts, I don't know if it was that one, but there were some of the concepts in their original ideas were a little too old line. They wanted something a little more modern. So they threw all that out and changed it. We had actually recorded the part when they changed their minds. But again, these guys know what they're talking about. They do this a lot. So the good thing for me was, strangely enough, is right after that, I landed Fern Gully, and I got the Stove and Beauty and the Beast within the year afterwards. So I was heartbroken and sad for a short period of time, and then my spirits were raised. So
yeah. It's okay. We all love you dearly, so it doesn't matter, parrot or no parrot.
Thank you. I want to thank you. I want to tell you the birdseed was really nice of you to send. I
So I want to get back to G.I. Joe a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Can you walk us through a Wally Burr session with you worked with a ton of great people. I mean, is there any fun?
Yeah, and you would show up and look at the script and do the read around, and then again, because Wally was really into the interplay, so you'd be sitting on the couch and there would be 4 or 5 of you go in and you'd do a scene. We typically read through the scene once, and then we would stop, and Wally would again direct us which lines he wanted us to do as Wally would do them. And Wally, well, I don't want to say that Wally was intense, but we did a party that Wally threw in the San Fernando Valley about 5 or 6 years ago, and he had the cast members, mostly to invite the cast members from G.I. Joe and from Transformers to the same party. And so at the end of the evening, the highlight of the evening was Wally pulled out the old heavy metal Transformers theme song, and we all got to sing the thing to the track. We sang it 3 times until Wally was satisfied that we did a good enough job on it. It was just in this club where everybody was hanging around. It's not good enough. Do it again. So yeah, that's all. That was Wally.
Wow. Nery, have you ever heard that?
I've never heard of this. I mean,
I've never heard that ever from. I mean, all the G.I. Joe stories I've ever heard. That's insane.
That one was really good. That was good. Yeah.
Wow. Now, do you have any other recording booth stories that you can share with some of the talent that you've had, some of your fellow cast members from G.I. Joe?
Oh, the Joe. Well, again, because there were so many of us, there were great stories. That one guy had One guy had some of these stories I don't know if I can tell. One guy had a stand-up career and worked in a club where somebody in the club, I'm not sure what was going on, but basically the owner of the club at the end of the week, we heard these great stories. At the end of the week, the guy said, I was paying everybody's paying the band and paying the girl who sang and stuff, and the guy was there, and so he went up to get paid, and the guy knew his uncle, so the guy said, I need the rest of this cash, so I'll write you a check. And he said, well, no, because he looked at the club and he thought maybe I shouldn't take a check. I don't know. So he said, I'll go back and I'll get my stuff from the hotel and come back and stuff. If you want, you can get more cash. He said, no, take the check. So no, seriously, I take the check, but I take the blankety blank check. So he took the check and he said, the odd thing was that the check was good. Cash. So good. So,
oh no.
Yeah, people told great stories of their lives and stuff. Again, that was one of the great things of doing the show. The show itself was wonderful and fun. We had great interplay, but I think that stuff in the background where we talked about what we came up doing and how we, struggled and made it and stuff. And we had a couple of guys who were so busy it was hard for them to get to sessions and had other stuff going on. But it was a massive undertaking, and Wally must have been pleased because all of us worked on other Wally projects, and he had us in various things at various times.
Neil tells a great story. I don't know if you've heard of the story, but basically the recording session was taking so long that you finally said, I was sweating, parking, but now I'm starting to sweat depreciation. So do you remember saying that?
I got good reactions. Yeah, we're wondering how far my car's resale value is going to be down before we get out of here. But you do that. You make light of the stuff. Again, Wally was really good natured about it because he took a lot of ribbing about it. But again, he knew what was going on. We did 90 million episodes of that stuff. That was like when you do you do a whole season of a syndicated show. It wouldn't be 13 weeks. You'd do like 70 episodes or some ridiculous number of shows. And so there was a lot involved and a lot of work. I got to give Wally props. So
now. Robert Mays brings up a great question, and I usually wait till the end. But since Dr. Mindbender created Serpentor, what was it like working with Dick Gautier?
Well, Dick was a neighbor down the street in Studio City and was great. Was known for his comedy. He was a great comedy guy and did a lot of sitcoms, a lot of Mary Tyler Moore shows, and a lot of different stuff. And so Dick had great comic timing, but Serpentor was just flat out evil and was a throat ripper. And stuff. So between doing serious stuff, he'd be doing shtick. He'd be having fun times and stuff. But he walked out of there like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. It was crazy.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was mostly. I mean, you did a lot of recording sessions with him and with Lotta together, Chris Lotta, right?
Oh, Chris.
I'm sure that those were insane.
And Chris was one of those guys. He was like opposites at the same. He was the sweetest, nicest guy in the world, but he also had his crazy wild demons and stuff. So Chris was always interesting, and sometimes he couldn't make it to the sessions for various reasons. In some ways torture, but the man was brilliant. Whatever he did, when his mouth opened, it was magical time. Again, it takes all different kinds of people to do that kind of stuff, and I think creative people have to struggle in a lot of ways. We always joke with people who are students and stuff that you have no idea you could spend the next 30 years of your life chasing this and nothing happen, or someone could walk in and go, I love that guy, give me him.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's also a very subjective thing. One person will like somebody's talent, somebody else, and sometimes the show will change casting people, change direction, change people. There might be an actor or an actress. Actors don't think about it when they audition for a part. They go in for the part and they go, I'm going to really be great, and they're going to hire me because my voice is so perfect and then they won't get the gig, and they'll walk away going, I thought I was so great, they loved me and stuff, and I blew it. I didn't do this. And then you realize, okay, we got, let's say we had Sergeant Slaughter. We have a character with a certain voice print that you may be really wonderful, but if your voice print sounds so much like somebody else's voice print, you have to have separation so that the characters are definable to the audience. And so sometimes somebody doesn't get hired not because they weren't wonderful, but because it didn't work in the mix, and whoever the other person was that they're locked into, that's the right person for that part, it may not leave room for somebody else. So there's a lot involved.
Speaking of auditions, this one I don't know why, I just can't wrap my head around this. But how do you audition for a stove?
Oh yeah.
I don't get that. It just like doesn't make sense to me. Like, how do you go in and go, hey, you got to be a stove?
So it was a kind of an effervescent, and that also had an interesting thing going for it because they did not. I have no idea what the person was originally cast for the part. I feel bad for that person because they didn't like who had gotten the gig originally. They had recorded the part. I got recorded and thrown out because from one movie because they changed the approach of the movie. The guy who had originally on the stove they didn't care for, and
Really?
so they basically had no time. They called in about half a dozen guys who worked for them at the time and said, we like all you guys, so we're going to have you all record this part. We'll pay you a session fee. And whoever gets the gig will know about it when we release the movie at the end of the year. So we all did the part, assuming that it was kind of like an audition, really. But you did the finish. So the movie came out. We went to see the movie, and oh my gosh! So yeah.
So you had no idea you had it until you actually went and saw the movie.
Yeah.
And wow. So,
yeah, it was kind of
crazy. That's insane. So I have to ask you, and this is like we just had Brock Powell on the show, and on our regular show not too long ago. And I had to ask him because Sekiro is one of my favorite video games. I love this game so much, and your character is phenomenal. You're the sculptor, and man, tell me about the sculptor. Like I'm just dying to hear this.
Another dumb luck thing, and I moved out of Los Angeles. As my family has grown and I have many children who also have many children, we moved here to be closest to the daughter who has the most kids. And not being in town, I can fly in, but a lot of people these days, because there's so many people for work there, I've had several people who basically said, if we can't get them here in an hour, same day, I could fly in the same day, but they're going, yeah, but then we'd have to wait. There's somebody. So it's one of those things. So I happen to be out here. And the local agent here, not my primary agent, but a great guy, good agency, had a promo that they cast for the game that was the advanced promo pre-release. So it's like a year and a half before the game was supposed to come out. And I went in, audition, got the gig. I was very pleased. In typical, it's also a voiceover thing. I recall being at a session at Bell Sound, and it was a national spot for somebody, and I went in, I was the tag announcer, which was, they did something like 13 spots. So I did the tag on 13 spots, and there were people on the couch going, as I walked by, because they knew that I got 13 spots by doing one sentence, right? But I'm going out the door, and I'm going, those guys are getting to do all those great character voices and have all the fun. I just got to do I did 13 freaking spots. Come on. We are so much in love with what we do. And it's so rewarding to do it. It's kind of like we want to do it all. We all want to do it all. So I finished the promo, and it was really exciting. It was really a neat character. And I knew that when we did the voiceover, I could feel that it hit a place. And I just felt really good about it.
Yeah.
Whether anybody else agrees or not, but I did. So I walked away going, man, would I love to do that game. Well, that would be so cool.
It's a phenomenal game. I mean, anybody who hasn't played it out there, please pick it up because I'm not just saying it. I really, really love that game. It's so good. And it's super hard.
My kids are gamers, and so I think that they said that I think this is the Dark Souls game series of games.
Right.
They re-released the first game in the whole series from 10 years ago, and they released it at full price, and it's a bestseller all over again. That's how much people love these games because they're considered almost unbeatable.
I was just going to say, that's why people love these games so much because they're so difficult. And I remember when I was a kid, like all the games that I really, really liked were ones that I just, I was like, man, I can't beat this game. And it took forever. And I finally beat it. I'm like, it was like my badge of honor. Like, yeah, I beat whatever Battletoads or something.
I'm not much of a gamer, but I understand I just could never get that stupid chicken across the freeway without it getting hit by the truck. It's terrible.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, the battery is running down. But but the deal about it was that when we got the call, and they said, okay, we're gonna record you. We're gonna I happen to be in the Bay Area at the time visiting, so we're gonna record you in San Francisco. They would have recorded in my house, but I didn't have the actual. I'm gonna touch this. Okay, they did not have the correct. I didn't have the correct microphone that they like to record on. And they said, if you don't have that microphone in your mic cabinet, we're going to have to record you someplace else. And they said I was in San Francisco. Then after the session, I went out and spent all of the money. I want to plug in my charger. That way we'll never run out of power. So, excuse me, this is an operation here. Okay, hold your breath. This is going to hurt.
No, I'm kidding.
So the so I didn't make a lot of money out of the deal because I ended up spending it all on the microphone. But now I got the microphone. Have I not done another gig for these guys? No, but I have the microphone. Yeah. But it was so exciting to have out of the blue have someone go, "We liked your performance. We're going to have you back." That's the best compliment anybody can ever give you is you get to come back. Back to the party.
Well, you're a phenomenal talent, Brian. We've loved having you and have had the last 5 years to get to know you, and you're incredibly talented.
Yes. We have not done any stupid leotard jokes, though. Okay.
Yeah.
So anything right now is you guys sent me to a con in Northern California, and the promoter for the con came up and said, Guy, if you would work out and if you'd shave your head and you get that eyepiece in there and stuff, and if you came out looking exactly like Dr. Mindbender, I'd book you all the time. And I said, and I could never go home, but you book me all the time.
It's funny because I keep looking at the picture because it's on my screen, and I'm like, man, if I just shave my goatee a little bit. I worked out a little more, I could look just like that guy. I get the little monocle
and stuff. But again, and it depends upon what crowds you're hanging. But it could be like a social life killer in certain places.
Absolutely. But I'm glad you brought that up.
Alcatraz, they'd love you there.
Yeah.
Come on up, say hello.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up. Like you're saying, is the GI Joe base is very fanatic. People travel hundreds of miles to see you at shows around the country.
They do.
Why do you think the series was such a prevalent and long-lasting success?
Well, certain things, it's one of those kinds of things, and you can think all sorts of different things about. I've had series that I thought should be really wonderful. We were talking the other day about Wuzzles was a great show with an amazing cast and lasted one season. But what G.I. Joe did, and did it better than anybody else, is it really hit young boys who are into adventure and stuff. That just really hit a spot, a pocket. And if you look at the history of it, the toy company, when they decided to do this thing, it really changed the whole future of the toy company. It made huge success for everybody, and it resonated and still does. So it's really neat to see a father and a grandfather and a grandson, 3 generations of guys who are still G.I. Joe fans. And there are people who are involved with different things connected said, this is getting so old, we're going to have to quit supporting this. There are still G.I. Joe national conventions every year because the audience still wants to participate in this kind of stuff. So I'm quite impressed with what they did. And I think as a disc jockey, I was a music director for a lot of years. And I always remembered we would listen to records and you think that's one and that's a hit. And we realized we're into that whole thing is if there was one guy who could listen to music and know which is a hit and which is not a hit, just with his ear, that guy would be set on a mountain like the world's biggest music guru. And people just say, what do we play? And they would do it. That's not the way it works. The audience loves what they love. So you go out there and you do your best and you send it out there. And when it's all over, if they love what you did, then they pay you the greatest compliment in the world because they then have a relationship. I think that the con thing that was really great, why I love working with you guys, is when we get to the con and we meet those people, the people that have been fans of the things that you've done, like the Joe fans, are such fans because they made you a part of their lives. And though we were in the studio and we didn't actually physically see them on a one-to-one basis, there was really something that happened between us when we did that. And when that happens, it kind of completes a connection. And it just is an amazing and powerful thing that you can make a difference in someone's life at a different time, in a different place, and it still resonates and it still changes people. It's a marvelous thing.
One of the things that's remarkable about G.I. Joe, and I think unlike any of the other shows, especially in the 80s, is that it essentially launched careers for many of the fans that were watching it, especially in the service industry, going into the military, the Navy, people that became police officers because they were fans of these characters.
People who make and sell really tight leotards successfully. Oh, yes, of course. Ooh,
now they make the masks.
Now the mask, right? That's a Cobra thing. I've been seeing Cobra jokes all week because of the quarantine mask.
I'm dying to get a mask that has like a little Cobra logo or like the Storm Shadow.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, I got to get one for next week, right? Oh, I can't fill it yet. Hold on, I can't spell it.
We should get them and then we should merchandise them and stuff, and we'd be very well.
Hey, watch CelebWorx live, and you can get you a nice face mask.
I have to go show you something. Hold on, don't go away.
Uh-oh.
Right there. All right.
Maybe he has like a
No, no, no.
Wuzzles face mask.
I can put this up. Okay. Except I don't remember which direction. The Cobra, the legendary Cobra patch. I
Oh,
think
that's
my Cobra was leaking, but there it is. So but I don't. Do I put it this way,
mm-hmm.
or do I put it this, or do I get really crazy and
where the lines go this way.
counterculture?
Yeah.
I don't know. The lines
That
go this way.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
perfect.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Now I know.
Hey guys in Storm Shadow will be proud of you.
I can't breathe. Okay, give me some duct tape. I'm fine. Okay, good. I'm glad.
Now I have to ask, Brian, do you have any words of advice for G.I. Joe fans out there, whether they're trying to get in the industry or people that are just fans of you from the show?
Yeah, sure. I could give you lots of different advice. I give you stupid advice, but I could give you really serious advice. And the serious advice is when you're doing creative stuff, there are never any guarantees. But the great thing about, I worked in a studio once, a British guy, and he named, not British, they do kind of weird British stuff. So he named his studio The Doing. And I really believe if you want to be successful at something, first of all, you have to look at the fact that you get to do it in the first place is success. That's the first thing, because there's no guarantee you're going to get any other success. If you can do that, then you don't have any pressure about having to do anything other than perform. And then what you do is you just do what you love and listen to other people who do it, what they love. And so from everything around you, absorb everything around you, but do what you do for the joy of doing it. And then you get results. If you try really hard to do something and you get too intense about it, there's a whole Zen thing. I happened to watch, they played a couple of days ago and I recorded Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I love that whole metaphysical hidden dragon thing about how if you get into the flow of the martial arts and stuff and you study it and you work on it, but you work on it for the joy of doing it, and then you relax and suddenly it gets better. What you do because you love, you're not tense about. And so you do a better job at it. Again, look at guys like Robin Williams. So art is kind of a thing that you almost live. So the thing to do is to keep it with you every day. Learn from experiences every day. If you're not a great impersonator, go find the guy who is the ticket seller at the local movie theater who talks weird and impersonate him.
Yeah.
If you impersonate somebody really badly, you've created a new character. That's okay.
True.
But like a kid with a video game or a kid with a guitar, what you do really well, you do because you don't put down the thing that entrances you. So make the things that you care about, things that really excite you and interest you, and then you'll develop the techniques. And we can give you all sorts of different techniques, and I can talk for years about ways to look at copy and all that kind of stuff. And that's all really wonderful stuff. But if you do it because you enjoy it and you love it, those things are also much easier to add. Well, some of them come to you naturally. It's a business of communication. We're talking to each other. Yeah.
I think that's solid advice for any fan. I hope you don't mind, Brian, but there's a lot of G.I. Joe fans that are submitting questions, and I'm going to put them on screen so we can knock them out one at a time.
Okay, and I'll answer the unspoken one, which is only during the full moon. Okay, now we can go.
Okay.
Or 4. That's the answer to everything. 4.
Okay.
So Ed Schumacher says he can't wait to see Mr. Cummings this September 5th through the 6th, 2020 in Augusta, Georgia at Joe Fest.
And Ed, between now and then, go to the bathroom a couple times, okay? If you can't wait, it's in big. So if you can't wait, just go to the bathroom, please. Okay, next question.
Trevor Bronson, my best friend, has been doing audition tapes since meeting Brian. You were a big influence on her. I can still remember her crying in joy because of your kindness. One of my favorite photos hanging on my wall is the three of us hanging at Los Angeles Comic-Con. Thanks so much for the memories.
Oh man, again, same thing. I'm almost as big a fan of my fans and our fans as I am a fan of the other creative people who are there. But like hanging with Alan Oppenheimer. Come on, ain't nothing that's better than that. But if there's anything that I'm doing that will hopefully influence you, it's because somebody great like Dawes Butler did that same thing for me. And it's partly the pay it forward thing. It is an absolute joy to see people who have the dream and to try to share that whatever I can to help you to realize your dream, because it was magical for me and it should be magical for you too.
Well, Brian, you were at the only convention that Russi Taylor ever did with us.
That's great.
So you did the big DuckTales reunion, and that was really a special occasion.
We couldn't clown around. Couldn't try to steal the scene with that. Russi was just effervescent and sweet and wonderful Russi, and it was a marvelous experience for us all just to be there and to feel the glow that she felt. So
absolutely, and we miss her. We all miss her.
She was beautiful for helping me get there. Wow.
Robert May says, "We love you, Brian."
Dude,
Robert.
right back at you. Now that
Oh, we have a fellow Cobra.
what?
Morgan Lofting says hello, Mindbender.
My girl. We love you, Morgan.
She's wild and crazy, and
She's amazing.
very, very intelligent. She whipped my you-know-what in that big contest we had where we were supposed to get all that stuff we were supposed to know. She beat my butt.
Yeah. That's because she's awesome. God love her.
So Jacques Deluxe says, loving this budding interest into voice acting. So I'm glad, Jacques, that it's, it's helping you out.
And I hope to do this as a career someday myself, Jock. So I do appreciate your comments. Thank you. I hope to do this forever. So, yeah.
So Chase Collinsworth says, how many Dr. Mindbender figures do you have?
That's a good question.
It's really hard to tell. I have a bunch of them, but a lot of the ones that I got at the last National GI Joe convention, I've hidden from my wife, so I haven't been able to go back and count them. But we just don't talk about them, but they're there. Okay,
they're somewhere.
Speaking of collecting, do you collect anything, Brian?
I collect everything strange that I can. Okay, this is going to be hard because it's on the phone. So just the control room alone, if I can kind of like give you a panorama. I collect all sorts of crazy and eclectic stuff. That's so
cool.
Atmosphere. Yeah, my family again. They get too nervous. They can't come in here. It's like it's just too wild. But if I have people come by who study, and this is only one room, if I have people come by, I want them to be like their imagination to be like stimulated by our surroundings. And also, to be honest with you, part of it's because I'm cheap. Because when I was in LA, there was a studio company that said we can soundproof your room and so deal with the surfaces for about $30,000. And I went, no, I'm going to hang stuff on the walls. They'll break up the sound. It's fun. It'll cost me just whatever it costs me. So, yeah. There you go.
Good.
Soundproof by the dollar store. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
So, Brian, we're approaching the show, but we wanted to try a new segment out on our show, which is basically someone that basically you're the one person we know that is very able to do this, which is a rapid fire voice, show off. And so basically what I'm going to be doing is naming your beloved characters, and you do what you do best.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I got to turn the hat around and get ready.
Okay, so
I love it.
So starting.
Okay, let's do it.
Dimmy Finster and the Snorks.
Dimmy Finster and the Snorks. Okay.
Wow, here we go. I'm already in big trouble.
Dimmy Finster was kind of like this. He was kind of like a little kid. And he was kind of like scratchy and stuff, and he had that kind of like. But he was like always. He was like this kind of tough little guy. But he was madly in love with Daphne.
Aww.
She was so cute, and she was a little waterlogged, but she was totally cute. Yeah.
Bumbalion on the Wuzzles.
Well, see, again, some of these characters are very similar. Bumbalion was kind of like Dimmy, but he was a little bit more up and get.
So Bumbalion was like, all right, you guys, we're going to go into that castle and steal that monster's gold right from under his nose. Only one thing. You guys go and tell me about it later, okay?
Papa Bear on the Bernstein Bears.
Papa Q Bear. Now, he's also connected to another guy, but Papa Bear was kind of like that kind of crusty. Yes, mother. Whatever you say, Mom. Mom, I'll be gone for half an hour because I'm cutting out to go get some wild honey, and I don't want you to know about it because the kids shouldn't be ruined by that stuff, Yeah. But I want to say hi to Stan and Jan wherever you are. You are Stains, and I don't care what it says on the internet. Okay.
Doofus Drake on DuckTales.
Doofus, okay.
Well, Doofus was a little kid, and he was like that guy, that little innocent little chubby kid. When Huey, Dewey, and Louie were like getting into trouble, Doofus was like, "Sure, I'll go with you guys. Only Launchpad said not to trust you guys because there are 3 of you, and you get into lots of trouble and stuff. And Uncle Scrooge has to pay the bill."
Oh my God!
Okay.
Bully on Zazu.
Oh, Bully on Zazu, you. Okay, Bully Molly was actually a really bad take on Richard Nixon. I love it. I love singing my songs, and I love the fact that the writer's having flashbacks inside his flashbacks. Oh, he's crazy.
Sir Tuxford on Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
Oh yeah, and there were three Sir Tuxfords. Actually, Bill Scott played him first, and then Roger C. Carmel. If you watch any old Star Trek shows, Roger C. was a con man named Harry Mudd who had these little furry creatures that reproduced so rapidly that they were about to sink the whole thing. So Tuxford was one of those kind of snobby fellows. He was a very fabulous warrior who couldn't decide about anything because he was kind of a fool. There's a very large foof in armor. Yeah, there he goes. Well,
The stove on Beauty and the Beast. Chef
But then,
Boucher.
of course, he's like him, He's also kind of a crunchy guy. If you get into my kitchen and you touch anything, I will fricassee you until you croak. Oh, no, wait a minute. I did that to the frog legs. Yeah.
Sully on the Monsters, Inc. video game franchise.
Oh,
I got him.
very, very close to Papa Cubert because basically it's kind of doing like a John Goodman. Yeah, okay. So I love scaring. Most important thing in the world is when you scare somebody, you give them an equal amount of love. And to do that, you scare them a second time, but with a smile.
Wow.
Sokolov on Metal Gear Solid.
Dr. Sokolov. Sokolov is a very uptight kind of, So, okay, so instead of but I'm doing the Russian, sir. So, yes, okay, like that. Sokolov would be talking, the GRU has found out we're doing this show. And I don't know what, but I'm telling you this now. They're listening to every word we say, and they're posting it on social media. My only question is, can I get scale for that?
That's so great.
Okay.
The sculptor on Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
And again, it's a very, very. Sculpture's hard to do because he's really close to the microphone. Because he's my son. I'm very sick, and I'm not talking about my sense of humor. I'm talking about the fact that I'm very sick. I'm very sick that you get to have all the fun. You get to wield the swords, and I'm stuck with these crummy statues. Okay.
And to end it all off, Dr. Mindbender on G.I. Joe.
The amazing Dr. Mindbender. You know that Dr. Mindbender wanted a career in musical theater, but unfortunately, he looked disgusting in those leotards. So, tell the Joes, I am coming for them. And when I get there,
we're not worthy.
I'm the DoorDash delivery man, so I'm coming for them because I'm bringing dinner. What can I say? Okay.
Brian, thank you. Yeah, mind blown. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, do you want to tell people where they can find you, things to follow? Do you want to plug anything?
Well, again, the CD is not yet posted. There's a sample of the CD as well as some information about appearances and other things at. We had a guy who had the same name, so the website is either at thebriancummings.com or at voiceatility, not versatility, but voiceatility.com. There also are two attached websites because I can't stand with just one. So one is an appearances and tutorial that gives you some idea on voiceover as well as some things on appearances. And then there's the music website that's crazy. The basic website is the voiceover website. So I have 3 of them that I juggle and maintain. Gosh, I'm so really crazy. I should be off in a desert island someplace and not doing anything at all. But I like this too much, Yes. So.
Brian, thank you so much. We're gonna wrap it up, but we want you to stay on here until we do. We're approaching the end of our show, but before we take off, we want to remind you of a few things. So, Chris, take it away.
All right, guys. There will be another CelebWorx Live Weekly Inside Look into G.I. Joe. We stream every Thursday at 5 p.m. And otherwise, we have other Cobra technical difficulties. But next guest for next Thursday will be none other than Storm Shadow, Keone. It's going to be an episode I guarantee you guys are not going to want to.
Not going to want to miss it at all.
Just as a reminder, also on Sunday we have our regular show, which is also at 5 p.m. And that our next show. We'll have Christy Sproul of Voice Chasers, and that's definitely one that you don't want to miss because we're probably going to fool around quite a bit on that one.
Definitely.
So we're going to have a lot of fun. But once again, this is Chris Arsaga, and you can follow me at The Real Arsaga. And in the words of Chuck Nolan, our friend who was kicking it with Wilson on an island, I have to keep breathing, and tomorrow the sun will rise, and who knows what the tide will bring in.
And this has been Nery Lemus. You can follow me at The Real Nery Lemus on Instagram. Just leaving you with a quick saying that means a universal hello, goodbye, thanks for stopping, and stay safe always. Yo, Joe.
Yo,
Night,
Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Cobra!
night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.